This episode of the Adventure Jogger is brought to you by Kimmy Maltempo, the Joyful Runner, Dan Perron, and Dean, and of course, all the rest of our Patreon supporters, and you, of course, the listener. Thanks for listening. The Adventure Jogger, a podcast about trail and ultra running. Meet fascinating runners from the front, middle, and back of the pack, sharing inspiring and funny stories about life and running. Running should be fun, and so should running podcasts. I'm your host, Steven Kornhaus, and this is the Adventure Jogger. All right, well, my guest tonight is Brian Vermillion, and Brian and I have known each other for a few years now. We've raced a lot of the same races at the same time and maybe one after another. And he's got a very storied resume of competition all the way back to kayaking, mountain biking, trail running, ultra running, a lot of experience. So welcome, Brian. Glad to have you on the Adventure Jogger.
Yeah, thanks, Steven. Good to have you. Good to talk kind of face to face, a little more than we normally do in races. So yeah,
Uh,
it'd be fun.
I know. It seems like in races we're always, competing. We're not, competing in that sense,
Yeah,
but we're doing it together. And so we see each other at an aid station. We'll be like, "Hey, Brian, how's it going, man? All right, see
e-
ya."
exactly. It's the quick breath,
Yeah,
grab some food, and run on out. So yeah,
that's
it's gonna
right.
be good.
I know, man. Well, that's awesome. Well, how's things going for you? I know you just had a big weekend last weekend. I saw on Instagram. We'll go ahead and get right to it. That
Okay.
you won and set the course record at the Fort Frenzy 12-hour race.
Yeah, I did. It was a good weekend, nice and hot, like Fort Frenzy always is. I know I've
Yes.
run it with you. I've run it 2 or 3 years, and this year I went in with the goal of, I wanted to break my personal record of 60 miles. And so pushed hard all day and yeah, came out on top with it. It ended up like 63 and some change. So yeah, course
That's
record
awesome.
for 12 hours out there.
Yeah, that's stout because I mean, like you said, we ran it together. I ran it last
Yeah.
year, and so I know the course you did, and that's a stout 63 miles on that course with that elevation. I know when I did it, I think I had like 7,000. So you probably
Yeah.
had close to 8,000 feet of
All
gain on
yeah.
that.
Yeah, almost 8,000 in it. The course was a
Wow.
little different this year. The
Okay.
first mile they cut through a power line clearing, which was kind of worse because you were in a field for probably a good half mile or so, just baking in the sun
Oh, okay.
longer. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, it was not fun.
Yeah.
The Everyone dreaded that power line clearing, but yeah, due to some
And all
storms, some
that.
of the trails were closed.
Oh no, and I know that humidity was probably very high as well.
Oh, you know how it is here in Tennessee. It was brutal the whole time.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I mean, take us through that race a little bit. I mean, obviously, I think it starts. Is it 7 a.m. is the start time for that race? Is that right?
I think it was 8 a.m. Yeah,
8
eight to
a.m.
8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did things go
Uh,
well for you? Did you have any like
yeah,
low points, or was it just a well executed race?
I wouldn't say well executed. I mean, it started off well, fueling good, stayed cool for the first, 2 laps, and by then you're already hot. I switched over to an ice bandana, and that really kept it going until probably mile
Yeah.
30. Um, but man, I kind of hit a wall around 30 and just was the heat was beating down and it was really tanking me. You had to take one of those almost a walk lap just to try to regroup. Uh,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and middle of the day out there, every time you hit a field, it was just brutal on you. But yeah, it
That
took
sun
a
exposure will get you.
it will for sure. I just kept icing the whole time and fueling, and thing turned around by about mile 40 and was able to start picking it up. The sun's going down, so you everything's going in your direction toward the end of that race.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Nice. And so if you did 63 miles, I'm trying to think. Your average pace was probably in the 11s, is that right?
I believe that's what my watch said. Like average effort pace was 11 something
That's
for
pretty
it.
stout, man. That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
moving.
It
Yeah,
definitely, it's one of those where you'd be walking some hills and then you really got to start running the flats and the downs to make up for it.
right.
Um, But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
definitely moving.
so who finished second? Do you know? I didn't see that.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'd
Do you know
have to
how
go
far
back and look. I
do you know
think
how far
second
back they
was,
were?
yeah, they were at least a loop or two. I think they were at
Okay.
56 miles. Um,
Okay. So you had a
and
pretty good
then
lead.
yeah, I definitely knew when I lapped everybody once, and then after that, kind of lost track of where I was at.
Nice. That's awesome. That's a race put on by East Coast Adventures, and they do fantastic races, just
Oh yeah.
real down to earth, great people. I remember when I ran it, the race director, David, he helped me a couple laps, filling my bottles for me. He's
Yep.
out there just checking on me. They're great guys. So
Oh
anyone
yeah.
out there, definitely recommend those East Coast Adventure races. They're awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Check them out. They're some of my favorites. Great group of guys. I run for their trail team, so yeah, I
That's what I was
really,
gonna say. I thought I saw that. Yeah.
yeah. So been running with them for probably started that in January, but we've been running the races for a few years now. So yeah,
Okay.
like I said,
So what does that
always
yeah, I was gonna say, what does that mean exactly that you're part of their race team? Like, what does
I
that entail?
really it just entails, you wear a jersey and you really
Okay.
just kind of you know, endorsing, I guess, East Coast, just showing, you know,
So kinda like
how,
an ambassador.
yeah, sort of an ambassador of it,
Okay.
that the sport, we're here for fun. This is a sport
Yeah.
that we're here to encourage people, to help others. It's not all about just winning and racing. It's the
Right.
community for sure.
Okay. Well, that's cool, man. I saw, looks like they've got, just guessing, I'd say what, maybe 5 or 6 people on their race team, something like that? Maybe?
Yeah, maybe more, maybe closer to 10. There's a handful of them
Oh, really?
across,
Okay.
yeah, all different ranges of distances. So yeah, there's
Okay.
a whole group of people and great group to run with.
Yeah, well, and you've been on a tear this year. We'll get to some of your other races here in a little bit, but you've definitely
All
been,
right.
you've been knocking them out of the park this year. So, but before we
Yeah,
do
yeah.
that though, I want to go way back, and I want to hear like, obviously, I think we talked a little bit beforehand. It sounds like you got into kayaking first, but maybe even before that, like, what was your first? When did you first know you wanted to do something athletic? Maybe it was in high school, or maybe before that, running track or something. Like, tell us your story.
Yeah. So I mean, through high school and even before high school, I played soccer. That was just kind of my sport. I wasn't
Okay.
good at it, but I enjoyed it. You know, and I
Yeah.
played it. I played it through high school, but I was just okay. Um, After that, went to college and really got into mountain biking and backpacking. Um, that was
Where'd you
kind
go to
of what
school?
Tennessee Tech in Cookeville.
Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
okay, I used to live on that way, okay.
yeah. So a lot of outdoorsy stuff to do. So we were always out hiking, backpacking, like I said, mountain biking.
Right.
Um, and so after college, I moved back to the Kingsport area. So I've always been kind of East Tennessee. Still mountain biking, but this is kind of when I transitioned into whitewater kayaking. Um,
Okay.
and really that kind of hooked me even more on the outdoors. And I did that for a solid 10 years, probably
Oh, wow.
100
And
days
when did
plus on the water.
was that was that, like, 2015 timeframe or before?
That was probably before. So I graduated in '07 and started in
Okay.
'08, and
Okay.
kind of been boating since. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
So as somebody that's not I've never kayaked before, like, my
right.
experience on the water is, like, I've wakeboarded, water skied, that kinda thing, but I've
Yeah.
never been in a self-propelled other than, like, a canoe, so
Yep.
to me, like, I see people well, I've seen your videos on Facebook where you're
Yep.
going down, like, these crazy drop-offs, like, waterfalls is what I would call it,
Exactly. And
and,
that,
like,
yeah, some are
that
for sure.
that seems like that would scare the crap out of you. I mean, like, if you go underwater, like, the first time you did it, did it just
Yeah.
scare the crap out of you, honestly, like,
Oh,
doing going under?
yeah, for sure. The first time I paddle out in just flat water, just a lake, I roll over and
Yeah.
just instant panic. You're stuck upside down. You think you're gonna drown. Um, and so yeah, it just scared the crap out of me. And it takes a while,
Yeah,
but you
because 'cause
get
you're strapped in, right? Like
yeah, Yeah, you're strapped in, you've got a
Okay.
what they call a skirt holding you, and yeah, I mean, you flip over, you're still sitting just upside down, holding your breath.
Yeah. Gosh.
Um,
I mean,
but
how long did
yeah,
it take you to get comfortable with that? Like, doing that move, the maneuver?
probably like a year. I mean, it took a
Yeah.
year of just practice, to figure out how to flip over and actually get comfortable in moving water.
Yeah. And I mean,
Uh,
so I know you said you did that for about 10 years,
yep.
kayaking, or probably because you still do it now, really,
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Still do it some,
more,
but
but
running's definitely took the front seat right now.
right. Yeah, well, I know, was it last year or the year before, I saw it looked like you were doing a lot of kayaking. Were you injured at that time and not able to run, or were you just wanting to loving the being in the boat?
So it started off, I really just loved being in the boat. Um,
Yeah.
and that was just, that was my passion. I'd be cranky if I didn't get to go boat on the weekends, and it's just what I wanted to do. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely been injured, kind of before it, and that sort of led into running. So
Okay.
that part of that was got injured in mountain biking and couldn't boat.
Ugh.
So then I ran some. Um,
Oh,
uh,
man. What kind of injury
yeah.
from mountain biking? I'm curious.
So yeah, I broke my collarbone
Uh,
mountain biking. So I got into that
that
pretty
seems
big
pretty
for a
typical
while.
for mountain biking.
It is. You go over the handlebars and you snap a collarbone, and
Oh,
you know you can't paddle a boat or ride a bike with one arm, but you can still run.
no.
So
Right, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, man. So when did you get into mountain biking then? Was that still while you were obviously you do
it
all these sports, so
yeah. So it was always something I did. It's kind of it works well together that if it's wet and rainy, you can kayak, and if it's dry and you
right.
can't boat, you can mountain bike. Um, so
Okay.
I just bounce between the two sports depending on the weather.
Yeah. Now
Um,
is kayaking something you do, like, year-round even when it's wintertime, or is that kind
yeah,
of a 3-season sport?
here in the southeast, it's four season. You can do it all year. Now
Okay.
it may get cold, and I've had icicles form on me from being real cold,
Oh,
but
shoot. We do that running, so
exactly, it's the same
yeah.
thing.
You get your
Um,
frost beard, right? Yeah.
that's it. It grows
Yeah.
little, and you just move on. But
Okay.
yeah, it
Now
was full. It was all season.
okay. Now same for mountain biking, I'm assuming, well, maybe I know
Sort
I've got
of.
some friends that do mountain biking, and if they use, like, fat tires in winter,
Yeah.
um, but pretty much is that a 3 season, or you do that all year round
Mm,
too?
You probably could. I'd probably call it three season. I mean, spring when it's rainy, all the trails are too muddy, and it's really
Yeah.
hard to get out and mountain bike. Winter, it's not too bad, but so yeah, spring's about the only time I ever really have to kind of quit mountain biking.
Yeah, okay. And so you did the mountain bike, you were kayaking. I
Yep.
guess I saw on your so for those of you out there that listening can't see, I mean, I'm not showing it right now, but he sent me a competition resume, which if you are a spreadsheet person, like I love a good spreadsheet. It's very nice, very nicely done on that, Brian.
Well,
But
thank
it
you.
goes
Yeah.
back. I think the earliest thing I saw on there was like 2014, 2015, maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
It goes way back. Yeah, 2015.
yeah, and so I saw on there you had done some, like, duathlons or maybe even, like, a triathlon involving looks like
Yep.
running, kayaking, and mountain biking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun.
So yeah, for sure. So this is a good story. So this is kind of what sparked the running portion
Okay.
of everything. So I had friends I boated with that wanted to do this triathlon where you mountain bike, you kayak, and then you run 4 miles back. And I'd
Okay.
never run 4 miles in my life. Um, I'd done all the other sports and was fine, but it scared me to death to think, oh man, I have to run 4 miles through the woods, you know. Um, and so
Right.
that kind of what sparked me running was training to run 4 miles. Um, and I probably ran for 2 months in my neighborhood just trying to get a semi fast 4 miles, which to me a
Right.
10-minute mile was fast. I was like, yes, I'm
Okay.
crushing it if I can do that.
Nice.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, that doing that extreme triathlon, I guess, is kind of what sparked trail running. Um,
Okay.
was
Now
yeah, 4
what was
miles in the woods.
your yeah, so what was your like your prime sport at that time? Like what were you the best at where you could make up the most time in a race? Was it the bike, the
Ki-
kayak, or the run?
Kayaking for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Now
even
what
if I
kind of
was slow,
kayaking is that
I mean, so
in the
you're
race?
still, it's still whitewater. So you know the Ocoee. So like
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
the there's the Olympic section of the Ocoee, like the upper.
Right.
That's what we were kayaking through.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I mean, you're still doing whitewater, and you're mountain biking on some actual single track, and then the trail run back was kind of like a dirt greenway. I mean, it really wasn't
Okay.
very technical, but it was 4 miles still.
Still 4 miles. Yeah, if you've
Yeah.
never
Yes.
done that much
Still
before, that's daunting for sure.
exactly. Um,
So I got to ask you real quick too, because like
yeah.
I was watching the Summer Olympics, and they had kayaking,
Yep.
and they had so it was like a course like they have in the Ocoee down there, where they have like these I don't know what they're called, but rods that hang down that the kayaker would have to go like around, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Where they're doing
saw
slalom.
yeah, but I saw this person was going down, and maybe this is how it works, but they would go like inside one, and then the other one they would have to like turn around and go up current around it. Is that
Right.
normal? Like that's
Yeah, so that's I guess part of slalom. You know, it's a whole different discipline of kayaking, but yeah, there's certain rules and gates you have to go through. Some you go forward, some you got to spin around. I mean, it's a
interesting.
yeah,
That seems
it's kind of
really
like
difficult because those waters
yeah,
move fast, and trying to go
it
upstream.
exactly. Yeah, it's a niche inside a niche being a slalom boater for sure.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
uh, so that race sparked your interest in running because it looks
Yeah.
like you kind of started the road running thing first. Is that right? Other
Yep.
than that trail race.
Yeah, so that I get through the 4 miles and realize, okay, I can survive 4 miles.
Right.
And then later on, my wife and her friend are actually going to run the Covenant Health half marathon.
Okay.
Um, so at that point, I was like, okay, I think I can train to run a half. And so, I built up to run the Covenant Health, and that's sort of what led into lots of the road running for the first bit was just preparing for the Covenant Health and then figuring out, oh,
Yeah.
road running's not too bad.
Well, I've got the
I
Covenant
saw
Health
it.
shirt
I
on right
saw
now, actually.
it.
So how did that first half marathon go for you? Like I remember specifically the first time I ran 9 miles in training. And I just remember thinking this was on the road. It was in
Yep.
Tennessee. I think it was maybe August, incredibly humid. And so I did this 9 miles and I was
Yep.
dead. And I was thinking like people that run a marathon are stupid. Like, why would you
Yeah.
do that? Like this just I'm dead at 9 miles. So how did your
Exactly.
first half marathon go?
I I had the same kind of feeling in training. I remember hitting when we ran our first 8 miles, me and my wife. And like you said, I thought this was unreal. Like I've run eight
Yeah.
miles. How can I go more? Um, but yeah, once the half marathon actually showed up, I don't remember it being that bad. I remember not being able to walk after, but during the race, I remember it going pretty well.
Right. Yeah, that's a hilly course too for a half.
Yeah,
I know the full has like 1,400 feet of gain, so I think the half is probably half of that, I would imagine.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and
So,
that's hilly
but
for a
yeah,
road half marathon.
yeah, for your first road half, I definitely thought it had some major climbs in it.
Yes. So I don't know if you remember because this was a long time ago now. This was, I guess, 2015. Have you run this race, the half or the full a couple of times or just the
I,
once?
I think I've done the half once, maybe twice, but I've done the full a couple more times. I did the full this
Okay.
year. Um, honestly, this year it was a long training run, but yeah,
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, like, I remember somewhere around mile like 23 where you come from the one neighborhood and you go up like an on-ramp up to the
yes,
bridge.
yep,
Did that on-ramp like killed me in
yeah.
22? Like I was walking that, I was cramping, I was shot.
It feels like it's never ending, and it just keeps climbing, and then it turns, and you're just
Yes.
out in the sun on that bridge. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm never getting done.
Right.
Yep.
that water
Yeah.
down below looks so inviting, like you
Yes.
just wanna jump off the bridge.
That would be great. Just cool off,
End
forget
it
the
now.
race. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how so I do see that you ran the half, it looks like at least once more, and then you ran how many times did you run the full then? I see it once in 2019,
Yeah.
then
Once in, I know I ran it this year, uh, maybe 2 times, maybe 3, I can't
okay.
remember.
I was gonna say, what was your time this year? I know you said it was a training run, but I
So,
don't see that one on this.
yeah, this year's time was what, like 3:49, 3:50, something like that.
Nice. That's a
Um,
pretty stout training run.
yeah, it's
You
one of
know?
those I needed a long run and the team was going out. I was like, well, I'll just join everybody else and go run the Covenant
Nice.
Health. Why not?
Now I'm curious, is that your marathon PR or have you gone
Nope.
faster?
So honestly, my very first marathon was my PR, and it was like a
Okay.
140 or a 346, 348, something like that.
Okay.
Um,
Was that also a covenant or did you do a different
no,
race?
it was Covenant. So my first
Okay.
marathon was Covenant Health, and that's my my PR at a marathon
Nice.
distance. Yeah.
Nice. Now I see you've got lots of other races in here, some 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathon, some night races. And then I think I'm trying to look through, I'm not seeing it yet. When was your first ultra marathon? I see
Ultra.
you did like a 6-hour race in 2018.
Yeah.
Maybe a 50
So
miler? Is that
so there's actually before that. So after the first marathon, um, I finished it and I thought, man, I'm indestructible. I can run anything. So I signed up for the Three Sisters 24-hour race.
Okay,
Um,
yeah. That's in
not
Maryville,
not
right?
yeah, in Maryville. It's like a
Okay.
3-ish mile loop. Very similar to Fort Frenzy, but just
Okay.
different location. Um, so I signed up for 24 hours thinking, I'll just keep running. This is easy. Um,
Right.
I got 40 miles in, my hips locked up. I cramped so bad I like crawled back to the finish, and I quit. I was like, I'm done. I
Yep.
cannot go anymore.
We've all been there.
Yeah,
Now that race like I guess Fort Frenzy where you said you quit, but you don't get a DNF, right? Because that race is just you run as much as you want to run, right?
right. Yeah. So in 24, in the 24-hour slot, I ran 40 miles basically. Um,
Okay.
I'm seeing
Well,
if
that's
I can
pretty good
find it on here.
for your first, ultra distance
Yeah.
going 40 miles. I mean,
So
that's I think I see it here. It looks like it was in April of 2018. And you did those
yeah,
40
that's
miles in
it.
9 hours.
Yeah. So had no clue about pacing or anything. I just ran.
Well, that's pretty good time. That's not a
Yeah.
bad time at all.
And this is why my hips locked and I couldn't go any further.
Right. Oh yeah, that'll happen. I've learned
Yeah.
that myself. Oh
So
man. Well, that's
so
so
I count
after
that as my
that,
first one.
okay. So after that, what was the next ultra
Um,
marathon distance race you did?
so the next was, let's look, Fontandango. It was a 50 miler.
Okay.
Um, and
And
there's
how did
kind
that
of
go for you?
it went pretty well. Leading up to this race, after Three Sisters, I decided I was gonna stick to shorter races and just try to run fast. Um,
Right. Yeah,
that
I
was
saw you did a
kin
few shorter distance.
yeah. One of those night races, these were all local races. I had a bit of an accident. I tripped and ended up getting a nail stuck in my knee in a
Oh
in a night
gosh.
trail race. Yeah, just a freak accident. Um,
Where did
um,
it go in your knee? Like, was it just kind
so
of in the center or
yeah, it sort of went in and then turned and then hid in there like you couldn't see
oh
it.
gosh.
So I hit the ground and roll. I try to stand and can't, and I'm like, well, I've messed my kneecap up. Um, it wasn't till the next day when I went to the doctor and had an X-ray that they actually saw the nail in there and had to remove it.
Oh my gosh.
Uh, Yeah, so that put a damper on running fast.
I'd
Um,
say so. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it probably took a couple months to get back to walking and being able to run
So how
again. Uh,
how far in your knee was this nail? Is this like a little
So
brad nail or is this like a 16 penny like, construction
it
nail?
no, it was more like a picture framing nail,
Okay.
but it went in, hit the kneecap, and then just turned. So it
Oh
didn't.
my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, just
That's a
freak
freak
accident.
accident for sure. My
Uh,
gosh, you're just running along. You probably would you like catch a root or something, then go
Yeah,
down and hit your knee?
you know how you do. You catch a root, you
Yeah.
roll, you stand up, and you go on.
Yeah.
I couldn't. Once I stood up, I realized I'm not going on.
Now, were you current on your tetanus shots?
I probably was, but it didn't matter because they gave me more.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah, yeah, no
Oh
question about
man.
that. Um,
Right. So how
oh,
how long before the Fontandango was that?
so that was in October, and
Okay.
Fontandango was what, February?
Okay. Is that the same race that
No, no, it's the one down at It was right at Fontana Dam at the resort there. Aaron
is that the
Sapp
one
put it
that did
on.
Brian Gage just buy that one or was that a different race?
That was
'Cause that
probably
was
different. He got Solly that's down that
Solly, that
way.
was it. Yes, right.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
right.
So I don't think this race exists anymore.
Okay.
But it was a 10-mile loop that you did five times.
Okay.
Um,
And how did it go? It
yeah,
looks like I mean, it looks like you completed it, right? So how did it go for you as your
I
first 50-mile
I
distance?
I I got through it. It was what, like 13 and a half hours or something. Um,
Yeah.
I remember the last two loops just, you know, death marching through the woods, just dead, couldn't run, couldn't eat, just feeling like crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, I got it done. And that was my big goal, from going from not being able to really walk, um, to
Right.
building back up to getting through that race.
Right. So back in the early days, like these races here, you're starting to build up that experience, and the
Yep.
distances. So what were you fueling with back then? Because I mean, this was, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I mean, what was your fuel of choice back then? You have any idea?
Fuel of choice was probably whatever goos I found on Amazon and I bought. Just
So you didn't have a nutrition plan and a spreadsheet?
no, no plan. Just a bunch of goos and water. I probably had Gatorade. I don't even think I used anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But it
didn't know
worked.
anything about electrolytes or salt. Yeah, I mean it may not have been pretty, but it got done.
Right. Oh man. All right. So Fontandango, you did the 50, then you looks like you did some
Yep.
some more shorter distances, and it looks like you go back to the Three Sisters again, huh?
Yeah.
How did
Yeah,
looks like you
definitely.
got 58 miles, so it looks like that's a 12 hour. That's pretty stout as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So after Fontandango, I really started getting more comfortable, running trails, running longer distances. Yeah, 2018, 2019 is when I really start getting into
Okay.
running more than anything else.
Right. And so I'm trying to think back, like when was the first race maybe where like we would have run that same race or crossed paths. I'm like, was it no business in 2022?
Would have
Well, I
been.
know we've known each other longer than that from just being, in the
Yeah.
same community in Tennessee. But I know in 2022, that was the year my buddy Lee ran it and I crewed him. I do remember seeing you there. And
Yep.
then 21 is the year my wife ran it, and I ran it in 20, and then 2023. I feel like I saw you. Were you there in 2020, like crewing or pacing someone?
Don't think I was. Um,
No?
I know you and we've run a loop or some miles out at Frozen Head with a group. I
Yep,
remember
that's right.
doing
That was,
that.
New Year's Day, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
New Year's Day. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and that was.
okay, that
I don't
was,
even
yeah, probably
remember what year that
20.
was.
I feel like that might have been
20.
2020 or 2021. I
Yeah,
remember that
I think it
specifically, though,
was.
because I remember, I remember we went out there and we did. Some of us did the challenge loop, and some people did a shorter loop. But then when we got to the
Yep.
fire tower, we all had like some whiskey. We brought like airplane bottles or some
Yeah.
moonshine or whatever we brought, and we all took like some shots up at the fire tower for New Year's Day celebrating. I remember that. It
Yep.
was a good
Yeah.
time.
And enjoy that day out there. Yeah. Yeah. That was one of my first
Yeah,
loops out at Frozen Head with that group. That was a fun time.
yeah, that's an awesome park. It's you got a great place to train there. Now I do see too, like you do a lot of running up Mount LeConte, like a lot.
Yeah. A lot. Yeah. So I have this personal goal that I want to summit every month at least one time. Um,
Okay.
and I've been trying for the last like 3 years to get this done. And it seems like somehow, some month, I just can't get over there. Um, I'm on pace so far, but I got to get out there like next weekend to get a lap, or I'll be
Now it looks
behind.
it yeah, I say it looks like you're out there more than once a month though. Like it seems like you're
Yeah,
out there almost every other week or something like that.
just it. Yeah. So if I'm in the middle of training and I'm really wanting to get some hills, um, yeah, I'll summit a couple different ways, or
Yeah.
multiple laps on the same trail. Uh, yeah, it's a good way
Now
to get
have
a
you
couple.
done the yeah, have you done the Tour of LeConte, I think is what they call it, where you summit like the 5 different trails, I believe is what
5
it is?
ways. So I've done all of them independent, but I've never done it as one go. That's on
Okay.
my bucket list to try to get that lined up to be able to do that tour.
That
I
would
think
be
that'd be a
cool. That'd be
blast.
really cool,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, what about the, I think that's also the only place on the East that you can get a vertical mile if you start in Gatlinburg. Have you done that as well?
Yep. I'm not in Gatlinburg. I've
How
started
did that
at Sugarlands. Um, so you still
Right,
get,
yes, yes.
so it's almost vertical where I started. I got, you get close to like 5,000 feet. Um, but yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to do the whole thing. If you start in town and run all the way, you can get the vertical mile.
Yeah, supposedly you have to actually go to some bridge and, like, you literally have to touch the creek just to get low enough to make the
Yes.
elevation work.
Yeah, yeah. It's a whole to do if you want to make it official. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
So, all this time you're doing these other, races, stepping up into the ultra world. Are you still kayaking and mountain biking during this time as well?
for the most part, it's funny. I have this spreadsheet of running. I have a log of the days I keep on a river for
Okay.
kayaking, and it as my kayaking days drop, my running days increase. Where I used to be on the river, 100 days a year, and now I'm
Wow.
maybe 10 days a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's just so I still do
Yeah,
it
big
some.
drop.
Yeah, yeah, definitely a big drop.
I can
Hard to
see how
do
that
it.
would be good cross training though, because I can imagine in a kayak, that's a lot of core that you use, I imagine. Obviously your arms,
Yep.
but a lot of core strength.
Oh
And
yeah,
that, I
yeah, a
mean,
whole
as
lot.
runners, yeah, we know core strength is really good for running those long distances. You got your heavy hydration vest on and you have a strong
Yes.
core. So I can imagine that's really good cross training.
Yeah, yeah. No, it does well, and there's a lot of times depending on what rivers you're going to. You're throwing a 50-pound boat on your shoulder and hiking 2 or 3 miles to the river.
Wow.
So I wasn't any stranger to distance with some weight. It's just
Yeah.
it's a little easier when you got a pack and not a boat thrown on your shoulder.
Yeah, and you get that strength in the legs from carrying that heavy, boat on top as well. That's now I'm
Exactly.
curious too about the mountain biking because I know I've heard it said that running can help cycling, but cycling typically doesn't help running as far as for strength is concerned. I mean, sure, there's some aerobic benefits, but have you found that to be true at all
Uh,
or just wrong?
I, I don't know. I mean, I definitely probably. I mean, I could see where my biking got easier the more I ran. Just I think that was my aerobic side building up that, I didn't
Right.
get tired near as much. You have more power in the legs to push hills for some punchy climbs. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I'd probably agree. I don't know how much I got to help running from the biking side.
Yeah. So let's jump ahead a little bit. And I see, so was the No Business 100 in 2022? Was that your first attempt at 100 miles?
That was the first one. So yeah, I'd uh I'd signed up for the Pistol 100 in 2020, um,
Okay.
and it
Uh,
got canceled. Yeah, and
yeah,
then 2020,
COVID.
yeah. So then 2021, I kind of backed off and said I'm just going to mountain bike. Um, but then I got the bug again and said, okay, 2022 is the year. I'm going to sign up and run 100. I've been
Nice.
out to Big South Fork's one of our favorite areas for biking, for camping, so it just worked
It's a great
perfect, and
park.
oh, it's beautiful out there. So I knew I wanted to run a trail race out there, so I was lucky to get into no business and do it as my first 100.
Well, how did it go? Your first 100, that's pretty big. I mean, especially, no
Yeah,
business is a pretty difficult one. I think there's, depending on your watch, maybe around 14,000 feet of elevation gain. It's
yeah.
generally close to 102 miles, so a little bit longer. So how did it go?
It went, I guess, so I'll say okay. It finished in 28-ish hours.
Okay.
Um, So, everything felt pretty good. The nighttime was definitely a new experience. I'd done a few night races, but never a full push into a night,
Right.
like a 100 miler. So that was different. I remember hurting pretty bad by the end. That year's the year when you come off Peters Mountain and you go down through the creek. That was direction we were
Right. Yep.
going. Uh,
Oh,
I
yes, you
just
had to finish on Rock Creek,
Yes. I just
which
remember
is horrible.
hobbling. It was horrible, horrible.
Yeah.
My knees were hurting so bad. I was using the poles as like crutches and just kind of hobbling my way through those rocks.
Yes. Absolutely. That was
Yeah.
the worst part of the course for me too. I did the same direction in 2020, and I
Yep.
remember on that Rock Creek section, somewhere around 90, maybe 95 miles in, I was
Yes.
sitting on a rock, and this elderly couple that, probably in their late 60s, early 70s was hiking. And they passed me because I'm sitting on this rock, and they're like, "Are you
Right.
okay, son?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been up all night running. I'll get moving."
Yep. Yeah. It's when you're
Oh
kind of
man. So
questioning, why do you do this?
exactly, yeah, well, that's what I wanna know too, like, so when did that moment hit you in your first 100? Like, when was that lowest of lows?
Um, it's probably mile 80-ish or so. Um,
Yeah.
I remember through there just being tired and drained. I think I'd picked
Was
my
it still
wife
dark at
up.
that time, or was it
It
light?
Yeah, it was dark. I think we were
Okay.
doing the gravel stretch trying to get to Peters.
Right,
Um,
okay.
I remember my wife was with me, and it seemed like that was just never-ending gravel. Like
Yes.
I could not get through the night or get there any quicker. Yeah, that was probably the lowest, and then the sun kind of came up right as I got to the aid station there at Peters Mountain, and
Nice.
sort of rejuvenate until you dropped in the gorge and hit all the rocks, and then
Yeah.
it went away real quick.
Your soul dies a little bit. It's
Exactly.
like well, how was that? I'm curious, having your wife pace you. Like, I know some couples, they have their own sports. It seems like from, Facebook that you and your wife both love the same sports. I don't know if your wife has a love for running. Does she
Yeah.
run? Because I know she did some
Yep.
half marathons, but does she do trail
Yep.
stuff at all?
She used to. She was getting into it pretty big. Was going to be doing a 50K. Then she's got
Okay.
some knee issues right now, so
Okay.
she switched to mountain biking a few years ago, and actually she got into it and loves it more than I do.
Nice.
So most days we'll go to the trails and I'll run and she'll mountain bike, and we just meet back at the trailhead.
That's
So
awesome. So how was
yeah.
it with her pacing you though? Like, you've got that, you're in the low, you're
Yep.
really, you're struggling. I can see, like, it could either be beneficial, you have your partner there that you love and care for, or it could be like, "This is the last person I wanna see right now."
Right. Well, I think it was one of those where part of me was excited because I'm glad she was there and helping, but then it's also someone you're comfortable with, so it's easy just to get down and complain and whine about things because it's
Yeah,
someone you know. Um,
right.
so yeah, I remember us walking and just trying to hear music and hoping we were getting there, and you know getting frustrated because we're like we were never finishing this gravel. But yeah,
Right.
I think I told her at the beginning of her stretch it might be 10 miles maybe. Um, I think she did more like 19 or 20, so she she had a little more than she expected on that one.
Did she go all the way to the finish then?
No, so it just she hopped in basically an aid station earlier than I thought she
Okay.
was going to. Um, so
Oh, that's
she was pretty
awesome.
much done by the time she got to Peters. She's like, I'm good, no more.
Yeah. That's like my pacer in 2020. He hopped in, I think it maybe Blue Heron, and I think he went
Yep.
to Bald Knob or Spring Branch. Not Bald Knob,
Okay,
Spring Branch or Peters, one of the two. So I remember
that's a
he
long
didn't really
stretch.
plan to pace. Yeah, he didn't plan to pace much, and he ended up doing like 25, 26 miles.
Yeah.
And I remember on that gravel road, and what we did to pass the time is we ended up counting beer cans because there were so many beer cans that people had thrown out of their car.
Yes, that seems just to be the hangout spot up there.
Right? I guess that's where
Goodness,
all the kids go to party now, go in the woods.
I guess so.
Yeah. So that was the first 100, and then I
Yep.
know you ran it again in 23, right?
Yep. Yeah. So the next year,
And
I
got
basically did the other direction,
the double buckle.
the double buckle. I got her done. So
That's right.
yeah,
That's right. Well, how did that go any better for you? Do you feel
it
like it went smoother?
yes, it definitely did. Having one done and then a year of training and knowing what's coming. I got done in like 26 hours, so cut a couple hours off my time. Um, and
Okay.
and finished strong there. I didn't really go through anything as bad as the first one. So
Okay.
second one was a lot more
Yeah.
fun for sure.
I remember seeing you out there last year because we both ran it for our
Yeah.
double
Yep.
buckle, and then I do remember seeing you in 23 as well because I was out there crewing. Not 23, sorry, 22. I remember seeing you out there too. So the no business goes well. You've got 200 milers under your belt now. You're this seasoned ultra runner, doing big things, hard things, and then you
Right.
go and then it looks like you went out and knocked out a little 11-mile race and Yamacrawl. Now, how many have you run Yamacrawl just the once or a couple
Just
years?
just the once. So this was so I kind of made a transition in 2024. I said I'm not going to do a 100 miler. I want to try to see how fast I can do 50-mile ish races.
Okay, yeah.
So that was kind of my goal going into this year was pick the speed back up and drop the distance a little. Um,
Well, it
so
looks like
Yam
I followed yeah, I followed that race, and it looks like they had to change the course again this year for
They
flooding. Is
did.
that right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
they cut it off a little and basically made it two 20-mile loops that you did. So you
Okay.
repeated.
Did you have to do the really sandy part down by the river?
No, because it was still underwater.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So there
No,
was a
well, you coulda had your
stretch.
kayak.
I could have just floated it. I don't know if I'd have been any faster at this point. Um, but man, it was muddy. The places that were near water were like peanut butter. Um,
Oh
but
gosh.
that's a beautiful race. I want to go back and do the actual
It
course.
is.
I think that'd be great.
Yes, that's another Brian and Shelley Gages run, just like No
Yes,
Business, and they're some of the best race directors in the East, I think. That's just amazing races.
they do for sure. That race was put on so great. So
Well, I definitely want to talk about this other race on here that you did this year is the inaugural Cherokee. What is it? The Cherokee 130 kilometer. Is that right?
130K. That's it. So
Okay,
yeah,
and it's the inaugural race, so there was, anytime it's a first year race, there's potential for issues and all that. But I think this
right.
one, just judging by the results, must have gone pretty well for you. Tell us about
It
it.
yeah, it went really well. So yeah, the inaugural year, it ended up being about 85 miles. Um, they were saying around 19,000 feet of climbing. I think my watch showed 16 or 17.
That's pretty
Um,
stout for
but
85
yeah,
miles.
yeah, yeah, it a lot of climbing in this race. A lot of
Now,
technical miles.
was it mostly single track or was there a lot of double track?
There's a handful of double track, maybe 5 or 6 miles of some pavement kind of cut in between. But for the most part, yeah, it was
Uh-huh.
single track through the Cherokee National Forest, kind of down near Tellico area.
That's a beautiful
So,
area too. So
oh,
beautiful.
it is, and this course you get to see so much of the area that I've only seen pockets of when kayaking. So it was great to see, the full area by foot.
Right.
But yeah, yeah, definitely check out the Benton Mackay Trail down there. It was awesome.
Yeah, so how does that course compare to a course like No Business as far as technicality? Because No Business is pretty runnable, but there are some technical sections. Not
Yep.
that much. But how's this Cherokee course?
So at the end of it, we were all talking about this very question. And honestly, I think the Cherokee was harder than running No Business 100.
Really?
Um,
Wow. Well, it's more
yeah,
elevation.
more elevation. The parts that are single track are very technical. There's a good 5 or 6 mile stretch that the whole trail is off camber and just right next to kind of
Oh
cliff
man.
edge. I mean, it's sketchy at best in some parts of it. But yeah, I definitely think it is harder than
And it's
the
also
the
in
100 miler.
July
Yes,
versus October, so you've got that humidity in full
uh,
force, and I'm sure that was just
yes,
brutal.
it was bad. Now we got lucky that it was overcast for a bit, so it wasn't as bad. But yeah, I mean it's still July in Tennessee. You can't escape the humidity. It's just brutal
No.
out there.
And now tell us how you finished.
So yeah, I ended up first place. Um,
That
so this was
that's
a
awesome, man.
I think there were 14 or 15 people that did the 130, and only
Okay.
5 people finished.
Oh,
Everyone else
wow.
was, yeah, everyone else DNF'd. Um,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, yeah, there were a whole lot of people dropping due to
And
the
what was your
heat.
finishing time too?
21 hours and like 11 minutes or something, 12 minutes. Um,
That's pretty darn impressive, Brian, for that kind of
yeah,
elevation and 85 miles. That's you can be proud of that.
I was moving. I'll tell you that's a race I'm not gonna
Yeah.
forget. But yeah, it was
Now, is it a race you'll do again?
that's a different story. I'm still in the debating stages right now.
Yeah, you haven't had enough time passed yet. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Right now I'm thinking I'll just help crew because man, that thing was rough, but it was
Now I
fun at the same
hear,
time.
aren't they wanting to add a 100-mile distance too?
There's been talks of it. God, I don't know what you'd do if you had another 20 miles to go after all of that. Like, phew,
Uh,
that would
yeah,
make it that would make it an extreme race for sure if they
right.
went to 100 miles, and because it'd probably be another
Now
5 or 6 thousand feet.
yeah. Now was that your first no, I'm looking through your sheet here. I was gonna ask if that was your first overall win, but looks like you've had a few of them actually.
I've had a
Fort
hand,
Frenzy, yeah, you won that a couple
yeah,
years ago.
yeah. So a
And the
few
Three
at
Sisters, yeah.
yeah looped races, but this was my kind of first point to point or single push race that
Mountain,
I've
yeah,
yeah an actual mountain race. So yeah, I call this my first victory for sure.
Okay, well, it definitely got some loop ones in there. You can still be those are, nothing to shake your stick at, especially
Yeah,
running,
yeah,
63 miles now at the, race you just did last weekend we talked about at the beginning, but you won that as well. So
that's
you,
it. Yeah,
the last 2 races you've done, you've pulled off some wins, man.
been on a tear the last little bit. From I had Yamacraw, then that went straight into Yeti 50 miler, straight into Cherokee, and then Port Frenzy. So yeah, I'm kind of ready for a
And,
break right
yeah
now.
yeah, so Yamacraw, you it looks like you were 4th overall, and then Damn Yeti, you were 4th as well. So, yeah, you've been, killing it, man, putting in the
Yeah,
work.
yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's all that training. I guess it's finally
I'm ru
paying off.
I'm curious too, so what kind of, training volume have you been doing leading up to, like, the Cherokee 130?
Yeah, so I would say my average weeks are probably 40 to 50 miles. Um,
Okay.
like if I broke over 50, I was pretty excited during a week. I'm working every week or every day, so it's
Yeah.
after work runs and then a long run on a weekend. Um, but yeah, trying to any chance I got to go to the mountains on the weekends, that's where I do my long runs. Make sure I got the elevation
Right.
in and do a lot of hill repeats out there.
Definitely. Yeah, it looks like I've seen you do a couple on Mount LeConte actually, a couple times up and
Yeah,
down, do some repeats. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a
yeah.
good push.
That's a good. You can get 20 miles and 5,000 to 6,000 feet of climbing in. Um,
Yeah.
so
Now,
yeah,
how close are you to, I guess, that part of LeConte or then say Frozen Head? Like,
yeah.
what part of Tennessee do you call home?
So I'm North Knoxville, so really kind of right between both. I mean, it's
Okay.
an hour and a half north. I can be at Frozen Head. An hour and a half south, I can be in the Smokies. Um,
Okay.
so I
Kind
really
of
just
nice, good spot. Yeah.
yeah,
Close to the river
yeah,
for kayaking, lots of mountain bike
that's it.
trails and endless
Yeah,
trails to run on.
yeah. I mean, Big South Forks again, an hour and a half north of me. So I just kind
Yeah.
of flip a coin and choose where I want to go for the weekend.
Now, I'm curious since you live so close to the Smokies too, and you mentioned that
Yep.
one part of the Cherokee Ultra that was very like kind of nice edge where you're on a cliff. Have
Yep.
you done the Smoky Challenge Adventure Run Scar in the Smokies?
I have not, but it is something. So I turned 40 next year, and
Okay.
it's what I want to try to get done next year is the scar. And I know
Nice.
you've done it, and I was hoping to
Yep.
ask you about that.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, it's awesome, man. That's probably one of the favorite courses. It's not a race, but that's probably one of my favorite
right.
courses in the East. It's just incredibly beautiful, so remote. You have to filter your water because you don't get to see crew for like 30 miles, 32
Yep.
miles. It's rugged. But I struck it it made me remember when you talked about the Cherokee Ultra because there's a spot, I can't remember exactly where it was now, but it was like that, where you're on this ridge that just it peaks and there's a little bit of trees, but you're on this
Right.
ridge and then like if you step off to the right or left, like you're gonna fall a little ways. And
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
remember
You're
being so tired and like concerned about falling there that yeah, it was brutal. But yeah, you definitely put that on your bucket list. Go do it for
okay.
sure.
It is for sure on my list. That's next spring, summer. That's one I've got to get done. I've done
Yeah.
lots of portions of it, but never strung the whole thing together.
I a I can't talk right now. A part of it you're gonna hate because I hated it too, was if you go northbound, because I went from Fontana to
Yep,
Davenport northbound,
and that's
is
kind of my
after
plan.
is after Newfound Gap. There's like these
Yes,
stairs where you go down,
yes.
and those stairs were horrible. Oh, I hate stairs. They're just oh, I hate them. Oh, well,
Yeah, I can
now
only.
you and your wife sorry, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say I can only imagine being 40 plus miles in and hitting stairs like that and just dreading every minute of it.
Yes. It's miserable. But no, I was gonna say, you and your wife have done something that I'm so jealous about, and I see your pictures on Facebook, and it makes me jealous every time I see it, and
Uh oh.
if you listen to the podcast I recorded with Ryan 2 weeks ago, or last week it came
Yes,
out, you'll hear us talk about sprinter vans, and you have a
I
van, and
I
you started
did.
converting it.
Yes, yeah, I heard you all talking about it, and I got a good laugh thinking, yeah, you can't buy a Sprinter right now, so yeah, we've
No.
got a ProMaster. Went with a
Okay, well, it's
Dodge,
basically
and
the same thing, right? Isn't it like the same engine pretty much?
yeah, maybe I guess if you get the gas version of the
S
Sprinter,
so you've got
but
the
yeah,
diesel?
no, I have
Okay.
a gas ProMaster, but yeah, I converted it last year and still kind of tinkering on it, and man, that's our weekend getaway. We load it and the dog up and head to the mountains and just bike and camp out of that thing. Um, I love it.
That's just gotta be so nice. I mean, literally, you could go anywhere, have your home with you technically, camp in it, you
Yes,
got shelter, it's you can put your mountain
I mean,
now, I don't remember the setup you have. Is your bed, like, raised where you can put your
yep.
bikes under it, or do you have your bikes in the ba like, on a hitch or something?
So they're under the bed on a slide. Um, so like I said, we keep them there. I can fit my kayak under the bed because it's raised, and then
Oh, wow.
yeah, so we can keep everything kind of internal, and then when we get there, just open it up and pull everything out. Um,
Nice. Now, does yours have a bathroom in it? I'm curious.
Nope, no bathroom, so you gotta run to the woods for that. But
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
I'm curious.
a fridge, lights and storage, and it's just a nice place to get changed for whatever adventure we're getting into.
Yeah. That's so cool. Now, it seemed, I think, was it this year? Did you take it out west as well on a
Yeah,
trip through like Colorado?
yeah. So we just got back in, well, the week before Cherokee, we'd spent out in Durango area, mountain biking. So we
Oh,
drove
nice.
out there, mountain biked for a few days, drove to Silverton, actually watched the Hardrock start.
Oh,
That
wow.
was, yeah, that was pretty awesome. Hung out there for a day or two, and then made our way back home in time to reload and drive back to the Cherokees. So yeah, put a lot of miles on it in the last month or two.
Now, did you feel the altitude difference on the bike, like riding? Because I know running, you
Uh,
can certainly feel it.
yeah, maybe the first day, because we picked a trail that just you left the parking lot and you probably climbed 1,000 feet the first couple miles. So that was probably a bad decision on our part. So we were both
Yeah.
dying, but after that, it wasn't too bad. Um, so yeah,
Now,
it
did you get
wasn't
to do
horrible. I
much
think.
running as well?
Luckily, I was kind of in my taper, because it was the week
Okay.
before. So I think
All right. Yeah.
I had 2 or 3 easier runs out there. Did one mountain run, maybe 10 miles, but most of it was just mountain biking every day, just to kind of keep moving without putting much stress on myself.
Yeah, definitely. No, I wanted to get out to Silverton this year and go watch Hard Rock, but I didn't get to. We ended up going camping that weekend with the family. And that's one of these years I'm gonna make it over there. I got to see the start, do some filming, and just kind of hang out with
Yeah,
everybody. It
it's
seems like such an awesome environment.
it's such it was and definitely a cool environment. You can just feel the energy building. It's one of those I would love to see more of the course, than just the start finish.
Yeah.
So maybe one day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of these days I'd like to do that course as well. That maybe like a soft rock they call it, where you kind of
Yes.
fast pack different sections, that'd be
Yep.
really fun.
That would be the perfect way, I think, to kind of get your toe in on it.
Yeah. Well, what's next for you? I know you said that you're kind of ready for a break. So do you have a break in there
Yeah.
or you got races coming up?
Nothing until really November. I'm gonna try my first last man standing at
Ah, okay.
Barn Creek. It's kind of another local race that East Coast puts on.
Right. Last year
It's
was the first year, right?
Yeah, last year was the first year,
Okay.
so I was like, well, I've never done a last man standing, so I give it a try. But it's November, so I've got a few months to kind of recover and get back into things before that
Right.
kicks off.
Yeah, well,
Um,
those are fine. Any other races on the calendar? Or is that it for the rest of the
r-
year?
that's it for the year. Um, Next year, probably the only thing that I want to try to get into is Hellbender again. Um,
Oh,
I
yeah.
tried I tried Hellbender in 23 and DNF'd it, so I'd like to go
Okay.
back and get some
Get some
revenge
redemption?
on that race. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yeah,
Maybe get on the
finish
kayak
that
a
one.
little bit this year too?
I hope so. It's been hard. I gotta wait till it rains enough to be able to get out and do that.
Oh, really? The river's down low, I guess?
Yeah, yeah. So it's all rain dependent. So most days it rains
Okay.
while I'm at work, and I just sit and have to stare at the window.
Dreaming of being on the kayak.
It, that's it. Dream of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. I've got a couple of I got some rapid fire questions I want to ask you, but first, like what's the
Yeah.
craziest, most bizarre thing like you've seen or experienced during a race? And I kind of think it might be that nail, but is there any other
um, Probably the nail. Maybe
yeah.
second. Um, During the Cherokee, it was at night. I left an aid station and ran across a whole bunch of wild pigs out there.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, I had a waist lamp and I kind of turned to the right, and there was a big, I guess, female pig and probably 6 little piglets with it.
Oh,
And they
no.
stared at me and I stared at them, and we all screamed, and they ran one way and I ran the other. So that made for an adrenaline rush at mile 60 or something.
Yeah, that would get your heart rate going.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm curious also, do you have any like pre-race rituals or superstitions that you do?
No, not really. I mean, honestly, it's a cup of coffee in the morning and then pound a Red Bull right before the race starts and see
Red
how it
Bull.
goes.
Okay.
Red,
Yeah, all right.
honestly, everyone asks what keeps me going during long runs or loops, and it's Red Bull. That's what does it.
Well, That makes sense because the caffeine is obviously a performance enhancer, and when you're
Yeah.
tired, it helps tremendously. 'Cause I experienced or experimented with that just maybe last year. Took my first caffeine pill at no
Yep.
business, or actually no race in Leadville, and it helped
Okay.
tremendously.
Yeah.
Just like it makes you
Yeah.
wake up so much, and you're just like my pace is picked up. So yeah, I can see a Red Bull doing the same thing.
Yeah. It's one of those that running an aid station, just a couple swigs while you're taking a goo, and yeah, it
Yeah.
keeps you
Well, what's
fueled.
your go-to fuel nowadays? I know before you didn't really have much, but now what do you go to every race?
I mean, every race drink wise, honestly, I like Pedialyte Sport. It
Okay,
comes in packets, and it sits well with me. It keeps my electrolytes and salts kind of where I want them. Um,
nice.
fo- Food wise, I'm pretty open to about anything. I can eat sort of whatever aid stations have. I
Okay,
use different goos or peanut butter and jellies, but I'm not stuck on one thing. Kind of
okay.
whatever I can
Have
get
you
my hands
ever
on.
have you ever had a race go south where you puke?
Yes. So no, Hellbender in 23.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I got really hot climbing Mount Mitchell. The temperature dropped and it went to like 40, and then I got really cold. And
Oh no.
I just remember leaving an aid station with a rain jacket on and a cup of broth, and just spent the next like 5 miles just puking my brains out. So,
Oh gosh. That is a
so
bad feeling.
it is. It happens, I guess.
So this one's interesting here, a little different. So
Okay.
if you could go on a trail run with any historical figure, who would you pick?
Ooh, that's a good. Any historical figure.
Dead or alive? Yeah.
Okay.
I know, can I put you on the spot there?
You did. Yeah. I'm drawing blanks here. I I don't know if I can think of anything right now.
Yeah. Well, that's all good. Well, you can think about that one, and we'll come back to it. So
I'm gonna have to come back. Yeah.
now I'm gonna do a couple of rapid fire questions for you. And I'm curious, just whatever comes into your mind, just shout it
Okay.
out. And I think
First worry.
we might already know this one. Favorite trail snack.
It's probably Red Bull.
That's what I was gonna say. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So mountains or the beach?
Mountains.
Okay. Morning or evening run?
Evening.
Favorite post race treat?
Pizza.
Pizza. All right. Yeah. What do you like on that
Yeah.
pizza?
Anything.
Now, does
As long as it.
pineapple belong on a pizza?
For me, yes. For my wife, no. It's a strong controversy in the house.
Oh no. Do you have to get like half and half, or get a pizza for her, a pizza for you?
You got to do two pizzas. She doesn't want the pineapple near hers, so we just got to get two separate.
That's funny. I see. I'm with you. I think pepperoni, I don't know, pepperoni, pineapple goes on a pizza.
It
That's awesome.
does. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So then, what's your favorite? Now you've done most race styles out there. What's your favorite race distance?
Um, I like around the 50-ish mile, 50, 60, something in there.
You can
It's
get it
still a
done in
long.
one day.
That's it. It's a long day, but it gets done and it's over. So that's
Yeah.
probably
We're
my
not.
favorite.
I won't speak for you, but I'm not quite Jim Walmsley, so I'm not running a 14-hour 100 and be done
No,
in a day.
no, I am by no means doing that.
Yeah. So do you have a bucket list race?
Bucket lit. Honestly, like we were talking earlier, Hard Rock. I mean, that would be one that would just be epic if I could ever
Yeah.
get into it or be fit enough to do it.
Yeah, it seems like that's one of those where it's gonna take probably 5 to 10 years to get into.
Yes, easily.
Yeah. Now, are you a music or no music guy when you run?
Music all the way. I love having
Okay.
playlists and having stuff to jam to as I run.
What are you listening to?
Any kind of rock, pop, punk, any upbeat, fast music. It keeps me
Okay.
going.
Nice. Okay. All right, just a couple more here. So, do you have what's your biggest running pet peeve? Something you see on the trail or maybe another runner do, or something where you're just like, "Oh, that irks me."
Um, probably when people have dogs on trails they're not supposed to. And I'm a
Yeah.
dog person. I love them. But if you're not
Yep.
supposed to have one out there, don't have it on the trail. It kills me.
Yes. Yeah. See, I don't have a dog, and I found here in Colorado, it seems like the dog owners have been overall much more respectful than they were when I lived in Tennessee. It was like in
Okay.
Tennessee, it seemed like they would just not have them on a leash and they'd be running everywhere. Where here, they're 9 times out of
Yes.
10, they're on leash when they're supposed to be. But then there's sometimes where, like, I don't care who you are and how nice you think your dog is. If that dog's off leash and it comes running at me, like my instinct's going to be to defend myself, like,
Exactly. Yeah.
so don't get mad at me if I kick your dog out there.
That's it. I've been chased by too many of them to not have them on a leash somewhere.
Yes, definitely. All right, so then let's say 2 more. What's your favorite season to run in?
Honestly, summer. I
Really?
Yes, I as much as most people hate it, I do most of my runs at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I love a summer run when it's just 90 and horrible and hot. Um,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good training. It is good
it
training
is.
because then
It
when you
is.
get it's cooler environment, you're just ready to go.
That's it. If you can survive running
And
asphalt
I
in
know they
100
say
degrees,
yeah, and they say, humidity is the poor man's altitude training, so you can train for a high altitude race with the humidity of Tennessee.
I'm hoping so. Hoping that pays off.
So last rapid fire question, what's your favorite recovery tool or item?
Um, so recently, probably since May, I've been using an ice bath after
Okay,
workouts and
cold plunger.
runs. Yeah, and it seems to be working well. I used to always lay in a creek after a run in the
Yep.
mountains, so it's kind of the same effect, but
Yeah.
it's it's really helped my legs just bounce back really quick.
Okay. Well, what temperature are you down? Is it one you can control the temperature on to know what you're
Yeah,
down to?
yeah. So it's probably sitting around 50 right now, 55.
Okay.
I can't
That's
go real
about
cold.
yeah, I tried it for a few days and I did 5 days in a row. I was gonna try to do 2 weeks in a row, and I got to 5 days. I think the coldest I got to was 50, and I was just like, "This I hate this. I'm not doing it
Yeah,
anymore."
yeah. There's a point where I'm like, I don't know if this is helping, but around that 55, it still
Yeah,
soothes the muscles, and I can sit in it a while, and
definitely.
it seems to help.
Nice. Nice. Okay. Well, Brian, I really appreciate you coming on, man. This has been a lot of fun catching up, hearing a little bit about
Yeah,
your
definitely.
journey and progression, and just huge congratulations to you for this year has been really successful for you. A lot of awesome finishes at these races.
Thank
Just
you.
keep it up, man. You need to come out to Colorado and maybe run Leadville one year or the 50
Oh,
miler or
I
some of
I
these
would
other
love
races,
to do
man.
that for sure. That it's probably my second favorite state, so I'd love to get out there and
Yeah,
give
definitely. Well,
give
if
it
you
a
need some
whirl.
crew out here, let me know because I won't be running for a while.
Yeah, well, I think I know a
Uh,
guy that lives out there, so should be good.
yeah, definitely so. Well, Brian, appreciate you coming on, man. It's been fun. Enjoy that race coming up in November, the last man standing. Hopefully, it goes well for you. If you carry on the success you have, maybe you'll be bringing home the W there as well.
All right, thanks, Steve.
All right, Ryan, we'll talk to you later, man.
All right, bye.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Adventure Jogger, please consider joining our Patreon and be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok for more content like this. Without your continued support, we would not be able to produce this type of content. So thank you so much to everyone that has listened, followed along, subscribed, liked, commented, you name it, donated on Patreon. Thank you.